Have you ever wondered how Napoleon Bonaparte, the once all-powerful Emperor of France, spent his final years in exile on the remote island of St. Helena? Imagine the man who once reigned over an empire, accustomed to grandeur and opulence, confined to the austere and isolated life of an island. The stark contrast between his previous life and his existence in exile is indeed fascinating. Now let's peel back the layers of history and delve into the myths and realities of Napoleon's exile. The year is 1815. Napoleon, once the most feared man in Europe, is defeated at the Battle of Waterloo. This defeat marks a turning point for the man who once held the reins of a vast empire. From the heights of power, Napoleon plunges into the abyss of downfall. In the aftermath of Waterloo, the political climate of Europe is fraught with tension. The victors of the battle, Britain, Prussia, Austria, and Russia, are keen on putting an end to the Napoleonic era. They decide that the best way to prevent Napoleon from stirring up further trouble is to confine him to an isolated location. The chosen place is St. Helena, a windswept island located in the South Atlantic. Remote and inaccessible, it is the perfect place to keep the defeated emperor out of Europe's affairs. The decision is made and Napoleon is sent into exile. Napoleon, the man who once commanded mighty armies, is now a prisoner on a lonely island. He is stripped of his titles, his power, and his freedom, but even in this desolate place, Napoleon refuses to be forgotten. He spends his time writing memoirs, recounting his victories and his reign in an attempt to shape his own narrative. In this battle of perceptions, Napoleon fights to remain relevant, to preserve his legacy. The world watches, curious and apprehensive, as the once mighty emperor adapts to his new life. And thus, Napoleon's life on St. Helena begins. Imagine being ripped away from a life of power and luxury, only to be confined to a remote island thousands of miles from civilization. This was the reality for Napoleon Bonaparte, once the Emperor of France, when he was exiled to St. Helena in the South Atlantic. Life for Napoleon on St. Helena was a stark contrast to the lavish existence he once led. His residence, Longwood House, was far from palatial, characterized by its dampness and lack of natural light. It was a far cry from the grandeur of his former abode, the Tuileries Palace in Paris. The people Napoleon interacted with were few and far between. His closest companions were his aides-de-camp, who followed him into exile, including his valet, Louis Marchand, and his Grand Marshal, Henri Bertrand. Their loyalty to him never wavered, despite the austere conditions. Napoleon's daily activities were simple and routine. He would rise early, read or write until lunch, and then spend his afternoons in the garden or playing chess. His evenings were usually spent with his companions, discussing various topics from politics to literature. However, myths have shrouded Napoleon's life on St. Helena. Some believe he lived in luxury, surrounded by servants and indulging in fine foods and wines. But historical records paint a very different picture. The reality was a man confined to a small, damp house, surviving on a diet far from sumptuous, and living a life of quiet, monotonous solitude. Others speculate that he was plotting his return to power, masterminding grand strategies in his lonely exile. But again, the reality was far more prosaic. His days were filled with reading, writing, and gardening, with no evidence of any grand schemes or plots. Napoleon's life on St. Helena was a far cry from the myths that have grown around it. It was a life of simplicity and routine, a stark contrast to the opulence and power he once knew. But it was also a life of dignity and resilience, a testament to the indomitable spirit of one of history's most fascinating figures. Napoleon's life on St. Helena was far from the grandeur of his reign as emperor. Napoleon Bonaparte, one of the most influential figures in history, died under mysterious circumstances on this remote island. But what really happened? In the heart of the South Atlantic Ocean, on the island of St. Helena, the life of Napoleon Bonaparte, a man who once ruled much of Europe, came to an end. The official cause? Stomach cancer. But as with many aspects of Napoleon's life, the truth isn't that straightforward. For decades, many have questioned this official cause of death, proposing a more sinister theory: poisoning. The idea that Napoleon was assassinated emerged shortly after his death. According to this theory, he was slowly poisoned with arsenic by a member of his own entourage. But why would someone want to murder a man already banished to a remote island? Well, Napoleon was not an ordinary prisoner. Even in exile, he remained a potent symbol of resistance against the established order. His continued existence was a political problem, a rallying point for those who dreamed of a Bonapartist comeback. Some believe that this made him a target. This poisoning theory was given a boost in the late 20th century when hair samples from Napoleon were tested and found to contain high levels of arsenic. However, it's worth noting that arsenic was a common ingredient in many household products of the time, so elevated levels may not necessarily indicate foul play. Contrasting these theories with the historical facts and evidence paints a more nuanced picture. While the arsenic levels in Napoleon's hair are intriguing, most medical and historical experts agree that the evidence points to stomach cancer as the most likely cause of death. This was the conclusion of the British doctor who performed the autopsy, and subsequent medical investigations have largely confirmed this diagnosis. Yet, the rumors persist, fueled by the very nature of Napoleon himself, a man who lived larger than life and whose legacy continues to captivate us. The mystery of Napoleon's death remains unsolved, adding to the intrigue of his life in exile. While Napoleon's life ended in exile, his legacy continues to shape the world. The man who dominated Europe, reshaped laws, and sparked the flame of nationalism found his final days in isolation on the windswept island of St. Helena. Yet his influence did not diminish. In fact, the drama of his exile only served to amplify his legend. His memory was kept alive through stories, paintings, and tales that often blurred the lines between fact and fiction. These portrayals immortalized Napoleon, turning him into a symbol of resilience and ambition. His exile became a narrative of a fallen hero, a tale of rise and fall that has inspired countless works of art, literature, and cinema. Even today, Napoleon's life and exile remain subjects of fascination and debate, a testament to his enduring impact. Napoleon's exile on St. Helena was a dramatic end to a remarkable life, a blend of myth and reality that continues to captivate us.